Hello students, hello, welcome back to your online class. Today we're going to talk about a new topic and we are going to talk about adverbs of frequency. We have been studying about that already last month before we went for our Christmas and New Year's holidays. So we are going to talk a little bit more. You have this worksheet here. So we are going to use this one today. Adverbs of frequency. Adverbs of frequency tell us how often something happens. How often something happens. Does it happen a lot? Does it happen sometimes? Does it happen never? How do we know how often something happens? So, if you remember, we already drew this timeline, but we're going to draw it again, so we're just for sure. So imagine a timeline. This is the timeline. And imagine this one is 0%. This one is about 100%. So when something happens 0% of the time, 0% of the time, we say never, never. We say never. But if something happens 100% of the time, we say always. All the time. Every day, week, morning, month. It happens all the time. If something happens about 50%, then it is sometimes. 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 It happens sometimes. If something happens around 75%, we say it happens often. Often. Usually. Normally. And if something happens around 25%, that's when we say rarely. Rarely. So for example, let's say somebody asks you, how often do you go to Singapore? How often do you go to Singapore? Now, I think most of us here never been to Singapore. I have never been to Singapore. And then you say, I've never been to Singapore. I have never been to Singapore. Let's say somebody asks you, how often do you go to Bangkok? How often do you go to Bangkok? I rarely go to Bangkok. I rarely go to Bangkok. Maybe one time every 3 months. Once in 3 months. If somebody would ask you, how often do you drink tea? How often do you drink tea? Sometimes I drink tea. Sometimes I drink tea. Sometimes I have coffee. Sometimes I have tea. Depends. If somebody would ask you, how often do you exercise? I exercise often. I exercise often. I exercise 5 days in a week. And if somebody asks you, how often do you have coffee? For teacher Tom, if somebody would ask me, how often do you have coffee? I would say, I have coffee every day. I drink coffee all the time. So if you look at these numbers here in the worksheet, they have it a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same. So never is 0%, as we said, rarely 20%, 25%, both is okay. Sometimes 40 to 50% as well. Often and usually between 60 and 80, like here, between 60 and 80, and always 100%, always 100%. So, in which situations do we use adverbs of frequency? Adverbs of frequency are used in sentences when we want to express how often do we do something. For an example, if we talk about our daily routine, the things we do every day, we will use adverbs of frequency. Example, I wake up or I get up at 7 every day. I brush my hair, wash my face, and brush my teeth. I never have breakfast, but I always have coffee. I usually go to work by a motorcycle. Every day I start work at 8 o'clock. I always start on time. Normally I have lunch at 11. I usually go home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I normally go to the gym after work, and after the gym, I usually go buy food. I often come home at 7 o'clock in the evening. I usually watch TV or Netflix, and then I normally go to bed around 11:30. So these are the adverbs that we use. So we know that if I don't do something, never, I don't do it never. Like in the morning, I never have breakfast. Or very, 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 very rarely, I usually just have coffee. You hear? I just use it again. I usually just have coffee. Some of you, for example, never drink coffee. For you, it's never drink coffee, but usually drink milk. You know, normal milk, chocolate milk, matcha milk. I don't know what kind of milk do you like. So that's why we use these adverbs to express the frequency, how often something happens. How often something happens. And for example, this one, out of, this is 100% out of. If it is 100% of the days, of all the days, then you can say, yeah, every day. But you can use every week. For an example, if you go to Bangkok every Saturday, let's say you have to go to Bangkok every Saturday because you have tutoring there. Then you will say, if somebody asks you, how often do you go to Bangkok? Oh, I go to Bangkok every week. Every Saturday I have to go to Bangkok. Because it is every week. Now we don't talk about days, we talk about weeks. Same for, let's say a year. How often do you go to the beach? I go to the beach every year. Every year in the summer, I go to the beach. Maybe you go even more. But when we talk about a time frame, if it is about a day, 100% of the days, then it's every day. If it's every week, 100% of the weeks, it's every week, every month, or every year. It changes, it depends. All right, so this was a little introduction. So what I want you to do at home, please check this and this, use these two timelines, and fill in the gaps. So here you have, it's very simple, you are late. So where would you put always? You are always late. So put the adverbs of frequency on or in the correct place in the sentence. And then tomorrow we are going to discuss this worksheet and we're going to practice with our own examples. Students, thank you very much for listening. I hope you learned something today and you had fun, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.